Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the XEROS Technology Group PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab that's just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so, and these will be available via your Investor Meet Company dashboard. Before we begin, if I may, I would like to submit the following poll, and if you could give that your kind attention, I'm sure the company would be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand you over to CEO Neil Austin. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jake. Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome. Just to introduce myself, for those of you that I haven't met yet, I'm Neil Austin, so I'm the Chief Exec of XEROS Technologies in situ since August, and joining me today is Alex Tristram.
Morning. So I'm a Director of Finance here at XEROS. I've been in situ slightly shorter term than Neil, about kind of 5-6 weeks at the moment. So yeah.
Super. So today we'll just take you through a kind of presentation which will highlight initially some very basic information about who we are as a business, some kind of highlights really over the last 8 months in particular since I've been in situ, and then we'll go further into some of the more technical details. So some of you may already know it, it's just so that we can offer a kind of full update on who we are as a business for all our audience. Okay, so without further ado, just to kind of clarify what we do. So XEROS is a licensing business. So if we follow the text on the right hand side, we are a licensing business. We are very much in the business of sustainability. We're a green tech company, and we offer proprietary tech solutions specifically for 2 industries. Those industries being the laundry and the apparel industries. And our aim very much within those technologies is to offer savings in terms of water, savings in terms of energy, savings in terms of the chemical pollutants as well, which are used. We're also now moving into a space of trying to consider filtration in particular of microfibers. The illustration that you see on the left-hand side is a good example of our tech in action. So this is the Care XC1 technology. On the left-hand side, you have an example of a woolen jumper, which is something I'm sure everybody will be familiar with that after a couple of washes. We start to see fibre loss and damage. There's pilling, there's shrinkage. However, by using the XE1 technology that the XEROS offers, you will have something akin to what you see on the right-hand side. So a much better preservation of the dye, maintain softness, and maintain shape. So really trying to make the item of clothing look as good as it was in the first day it was purchased. Just to talk a little bit more about the technologies that we have available. So working left to right, we have our filtration technology, as I said, which we call XF filtration. There's a little schematic there. It's a filtration device primarily for use within washing machines. The middle technology is our finish technology, XFN, and that's probably the longest standing of the technologies that the XEROS has. And it's using 2 key elements. One is a X drum, so you can see the schematic of that, which is a harvesting tool attached to the drum of a rotating laundry machine or finishing machine, and that applied with XORBs, nylon beads, is what helps us deliver those savings that we talked about before in terms of energy and water. Third technology is Care, the XC technology. So you can see from the visual there that it's a very similar technology to that which we use on finish, albeit it's a scaled down version so that it can be used within a laundry facility, whether that is a domestic facility or indeed a commercial facility. Just to highlight why we have specifically targeted those technologies, if we look at this visual, this is effectively the life cycle of a garment. So any garment you might choose to imagine starts its life in fibre production, so raw material production and the processing and sorting thereof, all the way through to its end of life, which unfortunately nearly always ends up in terms of landfill or waste to energy. Now, the bar charts that you can see within that represent the climate impact across that total life. And the 2 elements of it which generate the largest proportion of that climate impact are the textile production, and then specifically the bleaching, dyeing and finishing of that garment, and then the use or the care of that garment itself, which, as you can see, is 24%. And within the boxes, you can see that's squarely why we have our finish technology to target the finishing side of textile production, and we have our filtration and care technology to target the consumption side of it as well. Okay, so just to dive into a couple of highlights, for those of you new to the business, these will probably make a little bit more sense as we explain the technology further on. First is on the filtration side of the business. We have gathered quite significant momentum on that in the last period. So some of you will be aware that we signed a licensing agreement with a large European-based component manufacturer called Hanning, based in Germany. I'm pleased to say that in the last few months, we have managed to add to those licensing agreements with 2 further European-based component manufacturers. Really strong validation of the fact that the XEROS filtration technology is clearly one to have. Also in line with that, we're seeing a growing legislative agenda moving forward. Some of you will be aware that I've spoken to us before of France having been the first country to legislate, and I'll talk further through the presentation about how other countries are coming with that as well. On the finish side of the technology, we already have licensing partners in place. So the focus very much over the last 12 months in particular has been about trying to create that brand endorsement. So the apparel brands, the retailers, which ultimately are being targeted and rightly asked to improve their approach to their supply chain when it comes to responsibility and green approaches, are very engaged with us. We have a number of those high street retailers visiting us in our XTC headquarters in Sheffield, and one of them, a major Western European brand, has actually progressed to the extent that we have put a machine in situ in one of their preferred manufacturers. We have run initial production trials, and the initial results are very compelling. So really good growth and really good progression on that side of the business too. On the care side of the business, so this is the laundry side of the business. We made some really good progress in December. The first of those, something which the company holds very dear, is that we managed for the first time to get that technology into the hands of consumers. So XEROS as a business has had a commercial laundry proposal in place for a number of years, but for the first time in December, we managed to, in partnership with IFB, our Indian manufacturing partner, we managed to put a crossover product, an 11 kg semi-professional product, into the hands of high net worth individuals within India. So a really fundamental shift forward for us as a business. Also in December, on the other side of it, on a very large scale machine, a 90 kg platform, we also started a trial with one of the world's largest employers, which being Indian Railways. So this is with a view to eventually moving to a point where Indian Railways will be able to use XEROS technology in partnership with IFB across their sites within the subcontinent. Final bit is, obviously, as I said in the introduction, new CEO. So I joined in August of last year. My background, for those that don't know me, is strongly in terms of consumer electronics, particularly within the appliances business. I worked for many years for the Whirlpool Corporation, within the UK for the Glen Dimplex Group as well. And lastly, before joining Strix, I was part of the management team at Strix PLC, so another AIM-listed B2B company. Since I've been in, I've also made some changes to the business, not least Alex stepping up to FD role. Okay, in terms of the investment case, I mean, we feel as though we've got our business model very much toned down. So the first piece is that we have got proprietary technology. So as we go through each of the technologies in more detail, you'll see we offer significant savings versus industry standards today, whether that be in water consumption, energy consumption, or the chemistry that's used within that as well. And to protect that, we have a very strong patent portfolio. So 38 patent families are currently in place today. Our business model, as I said, is well defined now. So we have a high margin licensing business model We aren't in the business of manufacturing, we're in the business of creating technology, which is market leading, and then licensing those to partners to take to market. And as I said before, we have licensing partners in place, whether that be IFB on the care side of the business, whether that be Ramson's, another Indian company, on the finished denim side of the business, or whether that be Hanning on the filtration side of the business as well. Key question which we always have to ask ourselves is, the technology may be good, but actually does the market want it? Whether that be the water or energy savings, or whether it be the microfiber filtration offering that we have today, we are very much in a place where demand from people at home, consumers, is crying out for this. And in addition to that, not only are people crying out for this, but we're seeing a move in terms of the legislative environment as well. So just to repeat myself, France being the first country to legislate on microfiber filtration, stipulating that from January 1st, 2025, every single washing machine which is manufactured and sold in that country has to have a microfiber capture device. And as we come on to that, I'll clarify how we're moving forward with some of those other major regions as well. Just quick one in terms of financials. So I think, again, a number of you will know, we conducted a fundraise in September, so fully subscribed, bringing £6 million into business. We have had a cash burn of £500,000. That's now been reduced, but when Alex gets to his section, he can talk more to that. Okay, so if we just jump into the technologies to give you a bit of a better idea. So filtration being the first one. So microfibers are an issue. I think everybody that picks up newspaper today is fully aware of that. But if we think about it in three different tranches, so they have an impact, first and foremost, at a human level. So the microplastic exposures for every single person globally within 1 year is quite significant. So whether that's through inhalation and ingestion, we are taking thousands of microplastics into our system every single year, so whether we choose to or not. From a business perspective as well, there is a significant cost associated with the production, particularly if we just take plastic bottles as one example. So production, as an example, in 2019, the plastic is estimated to have produced $3.7 trillion worth of cost, and that cost is not in terms of the production and the use of that. 90% of it is actually in terms of the disposal of that plastic. And then just in terms of the planetary impact, something that we at XEROS feel very passionately about, unfortunately it's growing. So in 2005, there were estimated to be about 17 trillion microplastics in terms of pollution within that year. In the last 18 years, that has grown tenfold. So in 2023, the expectation is that will reach 171 trillion microplastics which are being shed. And unfortunately, the estimates are that that will grow further. So a fundamental problem which needs to be addressed. In terms of how we are doing it in our own modest way to begin with, we have our first technology, which is the X-filter. So on the left-hand side, you can see a render of how it works. So it's effectively a rotating filtration device. It fits inside a domestic washing machine. So there is an envelope of space which we've identified, which the filter can fit into. And it has an incredible rate of efficacy. 99%, indeed over 99% of microplastics are captured by our technology. In terms of the opportunity today, so on the left-hand side, you can see some of the work that we're doing, particularly with NGOs. So we are a tech provider, but we feel passionately about this. So it's not enough for us to be able to produce that tech and find those licensing partners. We are working hard in terms of raising awareness. We're a small fish within a big pool, which is why we're partnering with some of the big names within this space. But we are trying to influence, and indeed are being successful in terms of influencing that from a legislative perspective. So just this week, on Monday, we issued a further white paper, which is specifically targeting the EU Commission with a view to highlighting to them that the most immediate and obvious opportunity to capture microplastics from laundering is an in-machine solution. In terms of the opportunity tomorrow, so if I just start on the right-hand side, as I highlighted, there is legislation which is already in place, mandated for France in 2025. We've been actively supporting, as I said, initiatives by the EU. Also, at the same time, we've been supporting a private members bill within the UK. So there's been 2 readings of that, and there will be a further reading this year. So we're actively supporting that. And more recently, very exciting for us, is that we've been asked to support as industry experts a reading of a bill in the California state legislature as well, which is scheduled to come within the next couple of months. California of its own is 11 million washing machine market. So the view is that if we can influence that, again, we've got another considerable opportunity to capture a significant amount of microfiber filtration. Just light touch on the left-hand side, we're not satisfied to stop there. For sure, we're focused on the commercialization of our tech, but we're also thinking about the next piece. So as well as looking at versions 2 and 3 of the current X-Filter product, we're also thinking about how we can target the factory microfiber pollution as well. So we're actually proactively being approached by a number of manufacturers and a number of apparel brands about how we can come up with a solution. So that's an R&D initiative at this moment in time, but watch this space. Okay, just to elaborate a little bit on what those 3 licensing agreements that I talked about before mean for us and our ability. So with those 3 licensing agreements, we have now got access to the brands that you can see on the right-hand side. So pretty much all of the major brands globally, whether that be a Haier, Midea, Whirlpool, LG, Samsung, or even in Europe with BSH and Electrolux, we can now access them with 3 component manufacturers that we've got. So of the 120 million washing machines that are being produced on an annual basis, we're pretty much there in terms of being able to get our tech into them. Okay, moving on to finish. So when we talk about finish, we're talking about finish of garments in terms of production and manufacturing of those garments. Unfortunately, from a human impact, there are still a lot of chemicals which are being used within that process. Those lead to quite significant impact for those people involved, whether that's allergic reactions or indeed respiratory disease. So we're very much trying to find a way that we can reduce the amount of chemicals or toxic materials that are being used within that production. In terms of the scale of that business, the apparel industry is in fact the 3rd largest manufacturing sector after automobile and tech. So huge numbers, $2.4 billion globally is the value of that industry. 75 million people are live and operating within that industry. And even in the first area that we are targeting, which is the manufacture of denim, there are 1.2 billion pairs of jeans made every single year. So a significant opportunity for us to be able to make a difference. And in terms of making a difference, just to highlight some of those planetary impacts, so it's a very water-intensive industry. So 79 trillion litres of water are used every single year in terms of the manufacturing of garments. Our technology has the means to be able to dramatically reduce that. So we'll move on to the specifics of what the product is. So as I said, the manufacturing of jeans is very water intensive. It's equivalent to 10 years of drinking water per person. As I highlighted before, the chemicals that are used in that process are escaping out into the planet today. Our technology primarily reduces water. So by introducing XEROS, which are a nylon bead, into the medium whenever the clothes are being processed and finished, we can reduce the amount of water necessary to get the same desired look and effect that the high street brands are asking for. This reduction in water then naturally reduces the amount of energy which is being used as well. And also, as I said before, we are able to use less chemistry as well to get the same effect. So fantastic in terms of planetary savings, but also fantastic savings in terms of monetary as well for the stakeholders in that industry. In terms of that opportunity, so I talked before about the fact that we have manufacturing partners in place already, albeit we are obviously continue to have conversations about how we can expand that. But very much the focus, as I said before, has been about how we can work with retailers. So retailers will be the ones that will decide and say, I want my garment, which I'm going to sell to consumers, to be manufactured in this manner. The amount of inbound that we have, the amount of high street retailers that we have within our office on a regular basis is incredible. There's definitely something here that they want in terms of how we can offer that. And as I said before, we're at very advanced stages with one brand in particular, a European brand, about how we can make sure that that solution is offered to them in totality. Okay, if we again click on to the opportunity tomorrow. So as I said, denim manufacture is the first area that we have targeted, but actually there are other garments that we could target and we could benefit in terms of water consumption. So any garment which is manufactured will go through a final wash process. The final wash process, again, is extremely water intensive. So we have started to run trials and are clear that our technology can offer significant water saving within that. So in some cases, up to 80% of water that is currently used in the finishing process could be reduced using the XEROS technology. To give a sense of the scale of that, if our XEROS XEROS technology was used, 50 litres of water would be saved for every pair of jeans. That's 60 billion litres in the jean manufacturing industry alone, or the equivalent of the entire water consumption of the country of Malta. Okay, if I move on to care as the last technology. So the care technology, we're thinking very much about highlighting here. Yes, we offer water savings and thus the energy savings as well before, but what we're also seeing is that there is significant garment life extension as well. And this is really important. The reality of the impact of fast fashion, which everybody is aware of, is that people are buying a lot more clothes today than they were previously. So 60% more clothes are being purchased this year expected than just 15 years ago. And the sad reality is that 73% of those clothes end up in landfill or indeed incinerated. I mean, and equally from a business impact, there's a huge, huge cost. Even if we just look at the UK, that is £140 million worth of clothing which is incinerated or moved to landfill every single year. So again, big numbers that we can target. So as I said, the technology is similar to Finish, so it's using a harvesting XEROS device in conjunction with the XEROS, the nylon beads within the rotating drum. So another example similar to the woolen jumper which we saw at the beginning of the presentation. So this denim shirt, you can see that through the use of the care technology, the wrinkling, the patchy dye, the stress on the garment as well as the reduction in size is all significantly minimized by the use of our technology. Just to give you some live examples of the opportunity today. So we have had a long-standing relationship with a very successful industrial laundry service in France called XEROS. They have contracts with the likes of Air France and SNCF, so significant players within the French industry. And they're long-time supporters and users of the XEROS tech. So if we take one of the XEROS-enabled washing machines that XEROS uses today, a 25 kg washing machine, run on average 14 cycles a day. That is saving XEROS £10,000 a year and 2 million litres of water. So significant impacts are already being seen by the use of the XEROS technology. If we think about tomorrow, as we talked before, it's great that our tech is used within commercial environments, and we continue to look for further opportunities to support George and IFB to be able to grow. But we really want to get this technology into the hands of domestic homes. And we're moving ever closer. So we started in December with the semi-professional crossover machine, but we're moving to a situation where within this year, the expectation is that we will be able to launch a mass market machine. Rather, IFB will launch with XEROS Tech a mass market machine, which will be able to be used by that huge population. Again, a little schematic to help you understand. If all domestic washing machines were XEROS equipped, that would save the equivalent amount of water as is used by the entire countries of Switzerland and Israel. So significant savings that we can offer. Okay, and that I will hand over to Alex just to run you through some of the top line on financials.
Hi there, thanks for that, Neil. So as you all know, we released our annual results for year ended 2022 earlier this week. So just to give you some of the key points on the financials on there. So we did take a little step back on revenue last year. That's mostly as a result of just the timing of these contracts and the working through of the payments from our partners around the world. So we expect to see that pick up a little bit in 2023. From an administrative expenses point of view, again, we spent a little bit more in 2022 than we did in the previous year. But I think that was probably the right thing to do for a number of reasons. So as Neil mentioned, he arrived in August last year. We underwent an exercise internally to just make sure we had the right team in place and the right people in place around the world. And there was a small restructuring exercise that has enabled us to bring our cash burn down from what was a roughly £500,000 a month number last year down to what we expect this year to be below 450 and then lower as we move on from that. In addition, obviously, as we saw the world open back up, and particularly our partners in further flung parts of the world like India, we were able to get out and see them in a more regular basis. That's really important for us to have our teams have those relationships with those people to allow us to make the commercial progress that we know needs to happen. So we did spend a little bit more on travel in 2022, but that's purely as a result of it returning to the levels that we would expect to see on a regular basis. Our IP is, as Neil said, is a key part of what we do. It's the kind of cornerstone of our ability to generate revenue as we go forward from a licensing business. So where appropriate, we need to spend the right money to get that IP in the right place, and the life cycles of our patents are such that we have slightly more expensive years in some cases than others, and that was the case again in 2022. So just to reiterate on cash, we expect that to be on an annual basis below £450,000 a month in this year, which is positive progress from where we were last year. We still believe that based on the contracts we have in place and our knowledge of what we're doing over the next couple of years, we expect that by the end of 2024 we could be month on month EBITDA and cash break even, which would be a really good step forward for us if we can do those. So you may have seen the guidance that comes out from our brokers at FinCap. The revenue numbers have come down from where they were previously. That's a reflection of, well, a couple of things really. So as Neil mentioned, we've got our domestic laundry partner IFB. For a number of good reasons, that launch has been delayed slightly so that we can really take advantage of the new platform that IFB have been preparing internally for some time. So we expect that launch to be later part of this year, which has meant there's some knock-on effects of revenue there. That said, the kind of progress that we've been able to make with our licensed partners in filtration and the progress that we're seeing globally in terms of the legislative progress that's being made there, we really see that over the medium term there's a significant opportunity for us in filtration. And while some of the headline revenue numbers might be smaller, the margins on filtration are really good for us because it's a real pure play licensing. So we've got a real cause for optimism when we look at those areas as we move forward. So these are just some headlines on the numbers that we have put out recently. So I don't propose to go in detail through the profit loss account. Our cash utilisation was, like I say, slightly higher than where we were in 2021, but for the reasons that I outlined earlier, in saying we think those are the right things to have done. We're always pretty successful in our claim of R&D tax credits, so we're a half an R&D business. The work we do is genuinely innovative, really cutting edge stuff, and it's nice to have HMRC's validation on that as well as the work that we do with our commercial partners. Just wanted to mention on here, so that's our most recent share register. We're lucky in that we do have a long-standing and supportive investor base, so we've got some real supporters of the technology and the business there that have been with us for some time.
Just to highlight as well, so some of you may not be aware, the Entrepreneurs Fund, which cornered the last round of investment for us, Andy Fox has been a long-standing and significant investor for a number of years now. We should read the Brennickmeier family, which is also the owner of the CNA business as well, so the retail business in Europe. They obviously support us. They have a strategic advisor to the board, and equally they are close enough to see the progression that we're making is real and is valid, and that's I think it's fair to say that's why they continue to back us. So a significant investor for us, not just from a cash perspective, but also from a belief in the tech that we offer as well.
So if I just hand back to Neil to kind of wrap up things.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we've kind of covered off the top lines in terms of who we are as a business, but just to really ram those points through, we genuinely have market-leading technology. We wouldn't offer it if we didn't feel so we can make a significant difference. So that that is the case when it comes to the water and the energy savings that we offer, both in terms of the finish and the care technology, and for sure when it comes to the filtration technology, we have market leading and third-party verified efficacy rates that nobody else is able to get close. So on the microfiber side, it's been tested by a third-party institute, the Holstein Institute in Germany, and indeed the University of Plymouth a couple of years ago did a kind of an investigation into microfiber capture in laundry. And I'm pleased to say that the X-filter device came top of that pile, and actually we've seen that being highlighted again in the US as California has started again to make noises about wanting to legislate in line with that. So market-leading tech, we have some great people. So again, when we say we have experts in the field, we are a tight team because we're obviously an R&D business, but we have some of the brightest minds I can say that I've ever encountered, both from a scientific and an engineering perspective. Just to highlight as well in terms of the model, so because we are licensing, it means that really the tight team that we have today and the cost base, which we feel is appropriate to be able to progress the business, has no need to be able to grow exponentially as those licenses that we have in place start to reach maturity. We have the right team, and when the revenues come through, those will be purely through license. We don't need to manufacture, we don't need to hold stocks. That's a really great place for us to be. Just onto those commercial agreements as well. In particular, in the last couple of years, so I think credit to my predecessors and certainly the progress that I've seen under my stewardship over the last 8 months, we've really started to get to a very good place in terms of those commercial agreements. So just to reconfirm, 3 licensing agreements when it comes to X-filter, strong partnerships when it comes to care, and indeed to finish. Fourth piece is, as I said earlier, really important. So it's great if we've got technology which theoretically has some sort of value, but do people really want that? My background, primarily in appliances and consumer goods, tells me that that's always the first thing that we've got to be able to talk to. And as I said, whether it talks about microplastics or it's water and energy savings, everybody squarely understands that this is something that the planet needs and that they have to be able to introduce into their supply chain. And then, yeah, just to close off, as we've mentioned a couple of times already, IP is very important to us. After our staffing costs, it's the second largest area of investment that we put into the business. We have a very strong portfolio in place which protects us and ensures that those licensing agreements are rock solid. So yeah, I think that's us in terms of the presentation. So I'll maybe hand back to Jake.
Neil, Alex, that's great. And thank you very much indeed for your presentation this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab that's situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the team take a few moments to review those questions that were submitted already, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Alex, Neil, we did receive a number of pre-submitted questions ahead of today's event. And as you can see there in the Q&A tab, we've also received a number of questions throughout your presentation this morning as well. So firstly, thank you to all of those on the call for taking the time to submit their questions. But perhaps, guys, if we may address those that were pre-submitted first, and then we'll look to take those that have come in this morning. The first question that we have here reads as follows. If an OEM wants to sell a washing machine with a microfiber filter, what options exist other than buying a component with a XEROS license? Among these options, what advantages are there in choosing the component with the XEROS license?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. It's a key question, and I mean we've done some good due diligence on this. So I mean, clearly we're not the only player within this space. Everybody knows that microplastics is an issue, and particularly are aware of the shedding through laundering of clothes as being a particular area that needs to be addressed. There are competitive solutions out there. In terms of an in-machine solution, there is actually one in market today. So under the Grundig brand, which is owned by the Arçelik Group in Turkey, there is a microfiber capture device which consumer can buy today. We're pleased that obviously that development has happened because we really do want to see solutions for this problem out there. The only challenge that I would see with it, however, is the fact that it has a tendency to block, and indeed this is a problem that a lot of the competitive solutions have at this moment in time. So what I mean by that is that there are different characteristics to the fibers of man-made and organic materials. If someone only did a man-made material, a synthetic wash, then theoretically a mesh filter, which is what we see on that Grundig design, it is reasonably effective, but that happens very rarely. I think if we consider our own circumstances, I never do a synthetic wash. There's always a mixture of man-made and organic fibers. Those organic fibers, unfortunately, do clog the filter. And what that means is that even within one wash, quite quickly, the filtration device will no longer be efficient. It will block. On that Grundig device that's currently in market today, they have activated a bypass system, which means that as soon as the filter blocks, the water effectively bypasses it. So it means that your washing machine still works, which is great, but unfortunately, it's not capturing any microplastics whatsoever. We have found a solution to that insofar as we have an additional power source, which is feeding into our filtration device, which enables it to spinning, enables it to stop blocking, and therefore it can go anywhere between 10 to 20 washes without even needing to be emptied as well. So that's the only in-machine device which is currently available. There are a number of out-of-machine devices as well, which are also available, which do have a pretty good capture rate. Unfortunately, they are again a cartridge solution. So as soon as the cartridge will block, which it will do over a period of time, they need to be sent away back to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer will send a replacement. So kind of contrary to the sustainability element that we feel is really appropriate and actually quite expensive as well. We applaud and we're obviously pleased the solutions are in the market, but we are very confident that the XEROS solution is the best, and actually in some cases the most cost effective over the lifetime of the machine. And again, I would point to the University of Plymouth study, which reached the same conclusion.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. The next question that we have here asks, what is your net monthly cash burn at the moment?
Yeah, a good question, and one we get asked relatively frequently. So, as I mentioned in the presentation earlier, we was about running at about £500,000 a year, £500,000 a month. Sorry, when over the course of 2022, we have taken steps since Neil's arrival to bring that down, and we expect that to be below 450 for 2022, 2023, and then lower still as we move forward, purely as a result of the timing of some of the work that we're doing. So that's on kind of as is basis. So that's where we see it going in 2023.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Perhaps just turning to the next question here. In the recent regulations against microplastics, I don't see clear minimum specifications for the filters. The market might look very different depending on the minimum efficacy required for the filters as per the regulations, say 75% efficacy versus 95% efficacy.
Yeah, I mean it's a key question. So our perspective upon this is that if there is a technology which is in the market, which is viable from a cost perspective, it is actually preferable from an environmental perspective in terms of it's one piece which lasts the lifetime of the machine, then that clearly should be the solution. We don't operate within a vacuum, within a bubble. As we said, there are competitors out there at the same time. But this is why we are proactively getting involved and have successfully proactively gotten involved in terms of the legislation. So we influenced the decision of France to legislate to say that from Jan 1st, 2025, there would be a need for washing machines to have microfiber filtration. As I said before, we are actively working with the private members bill in the UK so that, again, this piece can be legislated in line with what we feel are the appropriate levels of efficacy. We're doing the same, whether it be California. So we are a tech company, but we also want to make sure that the solutions that the world arrives upon are the best possible ones. And okay, for now, we see the XEROS technology is the best one. So yeah, I think we are active in all of the right areas, and we're certainly getting a number of interest, a number of support from significant NGOs in particular, highlighting the opportunity that exists with our tech.
And sorry, just to add to that, from what I can see and what kind of feedback we're getting, the efficacy of the XEROS solution is not the only advantage. It's consumer friendly and it's cost effective as well. So the fact that it's so good might just be an added bonus for the OEMs that end up adopting.
Thank you very much. And just turning on to the next question, could you please talk to volumes slash G2M ramp with IFB?
In a manner of speaking, I mean, what I can say is that IFB are one of the largest brands in the Indian market. They're the largest domestic brand. They do volumes to the tune of around 800,000 units per annum. They have a very progressive and a very aggressive approach in terms of wanting to actually grow that market share as well. So they see a particular niche opportunity, which is in the more premium segment, and that is to specifically combat competition that they have from the Korean companies Samsung and LG. So 800,000 is their current numbers. They are targeting to grow that to 1 million units. Some of that will be just a natural organic growth of what is a burgeoning middle class market, in particular within India, which I think, again, everybody's aware of. But for sure, they want to take market share as well from in particular Samsung and LG. In terms of what the share will be of the XEROS technology, it will be the more premium product. Of course, it will, because it's obviously the most efficient and the most effective. The specific volumes will be very difficult to understand, and we're going through the right levels of due diligence. So part of the reasons why there has been a slight delay in terms of the launch is actually because IFB, in conjunction with XEROS, have made the decision that the technology should go onto their new platform. So their new platform will be the most advanced in terms of the user interface and the aesthetics of the machine, which again will give it the best possible chance of success within the market. Once that product launches later this year, different price points, different marketing messages will obviously be used so that they can maximize what the volumes will be. In truth, nobody knows exactly, but I can only point to the fact a huge domestic market, a huge share of that market. They already have an install base of somewhere between 20 to 30,000 points of sale for their product today as well. So significant opportunity. And I think, again, watch this space. We'll all have a better idea once the product is launched later this year.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And just turning on to the next pre-submitted question that we have here. How are you provoking volume uptake across these licensing agreements?
Yeah, so I'm presuming that's probably specifically about the microfiber filtration. So we talked before about how we have looked to make efficiencies within the business, and we've been able to do that in terms of most effectively using the resource that we've got. But that doesn't mean that we haven't invested into the business at the same time. So actually on the commercial side of the business, that's where we have had more investment, and equally in terms of the marketing and comms as well. So we have more sales commercial resource, and those sales commercial resource, again, work very effectively hand in hand and to a certain degree directly with the brands. So if we're thinking about the volume uptake, we are working closely with the final decision makers, being the OEMs, and we're working very closely with the 3 licensing partners that we have in place, so that we can make sure that the XEROS technology is the one which is prescribed by the OEMs. So yeah, we're not sitting on our hands, even though we are an IP business. We are proactively prospecting and pursuing some of the pre-existing things that we have to commercial maturity.
Thank you very much for that. The next question that we have here talks to the UK legislation and asks, when will the UK legislation host the second sitting?
So I think the latest that we've heard this week is that is looking likely to be November of this year. Having said that, that doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen until November of this year. Clearly, although the UK is no longer part of the EU, the white paper that we have published, and indeed the recommendations that the European Commission will issue, we presume will have a direct impact upon what the UK decides to do. The UK politically is a separate entity, but from a commercial perspective, the major brands will view the UK as just part of the EMEA region. Therefore, how they decide to proceed in terms of their microfiber solutions for France, Germany, Spain, Italy, the major European markets, will almost inevitably be exactly the same as it is for the UK. So it isn't that legislation isn't important for the UK, but by the EU and France having already moved, there's a logic which suggests that obviously the UK will follow suit. And the second piece within that to say is that it doesn't actually require an act of law for the UK from the UK Parliament to decide that this should be microfiber solutions should be included in washing machines. It's actually within the power of DEFRA, or whatever it's called these days. It's within the power of the departments to be able to mandate this anyway. This is very much about raising awareness of it and pushing them into action.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And perhaps a couple of final pre-submitted questions that we have here. The first one of those being, what's been the biggest challenge to the business since completing the fundraising?
Yes, it's a good question. I mean, on a personal level, it's been an interesting one because, as I said, I joined the business just before we conducted the fundraise last year, and actually my exercise has been very much about trying to undertake due diligence, if you like, on the opportunities that we have open to us. The biggest challenge, if I'm being honest, is prioritizing the opportunities that we have. And what I mean by that is that my assumption before joining the business was that there would be one clear winner, whether that would be filtration, whether it would be care, or whether it would be the finish side of the business, that would obviously be the one which was most likely to deliver the significant opportunities. The reality is that we're able to make significant progress. We have a very good position on all three of those technologies. So it's a very nice challenge to be able to have, but it's definitely that one, which is we have almost an embarrassment of riches of opportunity. So that's probably the challenge that Alex and I deal with on a daily basis.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And the final pre-submitted question that we have here, I know you've talked to cash burn already, but perhaps if there's anything further to add here. The question reads, in your preliminary results for 2022 published on April the 18th, you state that cash utilization, by which I assume you mean cash burn, is expected to be £450,000 a month in 2023. However, your cash balance reduced from 6.5 million at the beginning of 2023 to 4.5 million by the end of March, which indicates an average monthly cash burn of £666,000. What makes you confident that you can avoid the necessity to raise more funds by the end of this year, even if you reduce your rate of cash burn?
So yeah, I should probably just pick up on that one. So while obviously the maths in that question is correct, we have had 2 million outflow in the first 3 months of the year. The first quarter of the year is always our biggest month, and that's for a number of reasons. We have some of our bigger kind of annual bills come through in that month. We have some of our staff costs come through in that month, and also the timing of our receipts from HMRC are such that they don't tend to come through in the first quarter of the year. So it's not representative of kind of the annual flow of cash for the business, and certainly where we expect to be by the end of the year. So I wouldn't kind of read anything into that beyond the statements that we've made, in the sense that we think £450,000 a month for this year is a valid one, and that's the assumption that we're working on. So that's just to highlight that some of our working capital can be a little bit lumpy, and that means that we've spent a little bit more than we will in the second half of the year in the first quarter. Yeah, absolutely.
No, Alex, thank you very much for that. And as you can see in the Q&A tab, we have also received a number of questions throughout your presentation, and perhaps we have maybe touched on a couple of those throughout the pre-submitted ones. But if there's anything further to add on those, please feel free to address those, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
So I think just kind of reading through this, there's kind of some themes which are clearly sort of presenting themselves. Maybe just elaborate a little bit more in terms of the microfiber filtration piece in particular about what we would expect in terms of next steps in the future and so on. From a European perspective, because we have three component suppliers, we're in a very good place. So the reason why it's good to have three as opposed to just one is because obviously it gives us the opportunity to be able to offer two sources of supply to the OEMs themselves, which they're always more comfortable with. So from a European perspective, I think we're in a good place in terms of that partnership perspective. And equally, as I said, from a sales outreach perspective, we're now working hand in hand with them. So the key kind of next steps will be within the next kind of 12 months or thereabouts will be securing those licensing deals, securing those bill of material deals with the OEM brands. As we've shared with a couple of people, there is a high probability that those will not be announceable because they'll obviously be confidential agreements. Clearly, if somebody has the XEROS technology within their washing machine, they probably won't want their competitors to know that that's the case until it's actually launched to market. But those will be the key areas that we focus on. In terms of the other things that we'll do specific to microfiber, so we touched on the fact that California in particular will be the next kind of non-European area that we think is probably going to legislate, and one would presume that the rest of the US will follow suit. So we would expect that probably not within the next 12 months, but possibly 12 to 18 months, we will secure licensing partnerships specific to that region. Now, we can reach them with the three that we've already got, but having worked within the industry, I know that the request almost certainly will be that there will be a local supply, most likely in Mexico, supply of componentry for that market. So that will be the next area that we focus on. And we're also looking specifically at China as well. So China market obviously has opened up again in the last few months. We have partnerships already in place there, but I think again, it's likely in the next 12 to 18 months, China APAC generally will be another region which we will target with the filtration side of the business. So there could be some more licensing deals to answer the specific question on that, but we'll see. I think largely that probably covers the majority of it. I mean, there's a number of questions which we probably won't get the chance to answer everything, but largely I think we've covered everything. Let's do more for you, Alex.
No, I think that's probably fair.
Neil,
Okay.
Alex, perfect. And thank you very much indeed for being so generous of your time there and addressing all of those questions that came in from investors. And of course, if there are any further questions that do come through, we'll make these available to you immediately after the presentation has ended, just for you to review, to then add any additional responses, of course, where it's appropriate to do so. And we'll publish all those responses out on the Investor Meet Company platform. But Neil, just before really looking to redirect those on the call to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to yourself and the company, if I could please just ask you for a few closing comments to wrap up with, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. I mean, again, I would just thank everybody for taking the time to listen today, to learn a little bit more about the company. The one thing which I would like to say, it's quite a personal statement for me, but I made a decision in the summer of last year to give XEROS a go, to decide to join the business. At that time, I very clearly saw that there was opportunity. I think I referenced some of this in the annual report. I saw that there was opportunity in terms of the maturity of the technology, the demand driven by the market, and I saw that there was opportunity for me at a personal level with my personal experience and background to be able to add value. I just want to make it clear, and I want to really send a message to everybody that I feel more confident, ever more confident now than I did before I joined the business, and even within the first few months of the business. I see things and I know things which give me a great level of confidence. Sometimes things take a little bit more time than we want, and because we're a licensing business, we can't always directly influence it in the way that maybe I would like us to. But I definitely see that there's significant potential for this business, and I for one, am extremely pleased that I've made the decision to join the business and feel very confident with the outlook for the future.
Neil, that's great. And Alex as well, thank you once again for updating investors this morning. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of XEROS Technology Group PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, so good morning to you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.